Good evening and welcome to week 4 as we journey through Matthew's Gospel and use photographs and poetry to help expand our reflection and prayer. This week we move towards the end of the Gospel into the chapter 24 and 25, the coming of the kingdom. And we're going to look at chapter 25, 31 to 46, the judgment text. One of the key discussions in this text is whether it is a parable or whether it is a judgment scene. And I think most people would conclude that it is a judgment scene. It speaks of the Son of Man, or the King. The Son of Man reference comes from Daniel 7:13 to 14, where one like a son of man assumes the power of the judge at the final judgment. One of the interesting things about our commentator this week, Donald Harrington, he tells us that most people who are giving homilies or reflecting on this text have fundamentally misunderstood it. So I'm going to share with you his insight and see how it sits with you. If you look at verse 32 in the text, where it talks about all the nations or the Gentiles, Harrington is keen to point out that this means that salvation is offered to non-Jews and Gentiles, people who are out with the group that the kingdom is normally associated with. And he maintains that this parable is about the gift of salvation being offered to everyone who exercises mercy. So if that's a new insight for you, reflect on it for a moment or so and see how it sits with you. Obviously, speaking about all the Gentiles being gathered together means that God will do the gathering. He will gather the group in, and he will separate sheep from goats. In the evening, shepherds used to separate goats to keep them warm because sheep have fleecy coats. Sheep themselves are more valuable, and so they get better treatment. The king is the glorious Son of God in the parable, and the invitation is that the Son of Man judges the righteous, those who are qualified to enter into the joy of God's kingdom. From the beginning of the world, the figures of wisdom have created a sense of that blessedness, of being invited into the kingdom. You took me in, you showed me hospitality. The righteous are on the right-hand side of the Son of God, and that is symbolized by the sheep. For one of the least of these brothers of mine, the Son of Man identifies him with those who are the least. And finally, at the end of the parable, what we have seen is a simple, dramatic enactment of one of the images of the kingdom. There is the accused, there is the sentence, there is the reason for it, there is the request for clarification, there's the king's explanation of the final verse, and that summarizes the judgment process. The wicked go to eternal punishment and the righteous to eternal life. And so it provides a warning to be constantly vigilant. And of course what comes to mind is Leonardo da Vinci's Last Judgment scene in the Sistine Chapel, where those who are righteous are painted in bright colours ascending to heaven, and those who are condemned are painted in darker colours descending into the depths of Sheol. This week we're going to spend a little longer on our poem, because the exercise of this week is to write your own poem. And the poem that we're going to reflect on from Denise Levertov this week is called Roast Potatoes. Before the wholesale produce market moved to the Bronx, what wild Arabian scenes there would be each night. Across from our 5th floor window, the trucks arriving from all over, as if a caravanserai was under the weird orange bright streetlights. Or was it the canvas awnings that were orange, sheltering the carrots and the actual oranges? Great mounds of fruit, mountain ranges of vegetables spread in the stalls, and now more overloading, and the retail trucks rolling up to bargain and buy until dawn. Unemployed men, casual labour, hung around, waiting for clean-up jobs. Some were glad to get bruised produce, if no work. And the Catholic worker pick-up came at last for anything unsold, unsellable, but not uncookable. In the 60s there were the Bowery, yes, ordinary urban winos, but not throngs of homeless men, and hardly ever a homeless woman, except for those who were down at Mary House, or sometimes conspicuous, embarrassing, in the waiting room at Grand Central. There were men, though, among those frequenting the market, who hardly had no fixed abode. We thought of them as old-fashioned hobos. Sorry, I've not got the second page there. Some in the night or weekends, when the big parking lot, the whole commercial neighbourhood, vanished now, was deserted, they'd build fires in old metal barrels and sit around on them on upturned crates, roasting fallen potatoes they had salvaged. A regular feast once when a truck lost its load, and talking and telling stories and passing a bottle if they had one. The war was remotely gearing up, Vietnam a still unfamiliar name. The men were down on their luck, some white, some black, not noticeably hostile. Most of them probably drunks. You could call it a golden age. And yet, around those fires, those roasting potatoes, you could see, even from our top-story window, not even down there catching the smoky potato skin smell, or hearing fragments of talk or laughter. Something you can name it if you can. I can't. Something you might call blessed. Is that hyperbole? Something kind, something not to be found in the 90s anyway. Something it seems that we have to enter the new millennium lacking, and for the young, unknown to memory. This week for our pictures from Salgado, we're going to look at 3 pictures from his work on workers. He did a number of reports on workers from all over the world, and we're going to first look at coal miners from India. Then we're going to look at the open gold mine in Serra Pelada in Brazil. And then finally, from the first Gulf War, we're going to look at those men who came to cap the burning oil wells in Kuwait. My own pictures this week come from Africa, from the Apartheid Museum in Soweto, from Robben Island, Nelson Mandela's cell, and also from Malawi, visitors enjoying the company of children.